Hello and welcome to the session where we are looking at the ClassView Connect component of the AutoScholar Advisor system. This is of the new version 3 that's being written, and this is an early look at some of the first functions that may be of interest. The ClassView Connect component will develop further during the version 3 upgrade, and you'll see all the previous functions and some new functions, including things like the attendance management and the logging of assessments and auto-generation of assessments and concept scaffolding and so on. For now, we are just looking at the basic records. So we are looking in ClassView Connect at the types of records that you'll typically see there. When you go onto the new version and log in, you'll be presented with the students at risk first. And please note, in this presentation, we have anonymized our student data so that this presentation can be hosted online without having to blur out names and so on. So it's been hashed here, and when you log in on your institution, you'll be able to see the first name and the last name and the student number. So that explains these hashes here. So under at risk, you'll get a list of students who are classified as being at risk. You'll see on the right here that you can send a message, so you can reach out to that student, and you can also see other information about that student here, so some biographical information and some information about their performance in the courses or in the assessments. So you can see the students that have been estimated to be at risk. You can also review all students in this class. So of course, ClassView Connect is looking at a specific course and a class in that course. And so you can view all the other students in that class and you can review their performance there. So these codes are the assessment codes, and you can see here the stats for each of those assessments. So in this course, it seems these two assessments are planned but not yet written. And so we have results for just the first two assessments. You can see the pass rate, the mean, the number of students, and the standard deviation. And I guess these basic statistics are pretty well known. You also have the skewness and the kurtosis. So the skewness tells you how far, well, both those tell us how far the distribution of marks in this assessment, how far it deviates from the normal distribution. So skewness, -4, tells us that the curve is shifted to the left of a normal distribution, and positive kurtosis tells us that the peak is higher than the normal distribution would give us. So that just gives us an indication of how far we are away from a normal distribution. And these various indicators help us to compare our assessment performance and understand how normal, I'm trying to avoid saying the word normal, but the departure away from the normal distribution. So that gives us some indication about performance in the course as well. So under at-risk, you can also change the settings here. And so the way at-risk estimation works is by raising alerts about a student. So there are different types of alerts. So for instance, the absolute mark, if it's below 50% on an assessment, then that raises one alert. And then we omit any alerts where the result is more than 70%. And I'll explain why we have to do that just now. That seems like an obvious thing. So another type of alert is the number of standard deviations away from the mean. So Z is the number of standard deviations that the student has away from the mean. And if we look at some of these students here, you can see for this student, let's take another mark. So this student has 56% on an assessment. Now that's more than 50%. So the student hasn't failed this assessment. However, when you compare that with the mean mark on the course, because the mean is fairly high and the standard deviation is fairly small, this is 0.85 standard deviations below the mean. So this is a relatively low mark in that assessment, and so an alert may be raised here. Well, in this case, 0.85 is not low enough. But if there is a standard deviation, if you have a z value less than -1, then you are more than one standard deviation below the mean. So the z value helps us estimate the relative difference between that student's result and the mean result on the course. And sometimes the assessment result or the mean assessment mark is so high that that the alert on 50% doesn't make sense anymore, and we want to omit results that are more than 70%. So that's why we have that. So you can change the parameters here and recalculate and re-estimate the at-risk students. And in this case, by the way, it's showing some students that don't have this very low Z-min, and that's because on this particular assessment, the results are quite good. So it's actually struggling to find students in that very low range. It's also because there's such a departure from the normal distribution that using the normal distribution style of approach doesn't work too well. So instead, it's taking the students with the lowest overall assessment mark here. So whatever your criteria, the system tries to find the most underperforming students in that course overall, looking at all the assessments being written. So that's at risk. If you look also under student records, you can select any student on the left here, and it will show all the results. And just for the sake of simplicity, you can twirl some of these in. So here, for the student, these are the other results that the student has accomplished in the other courses. And then in the current course, these are the assessment results, 70, 65, and so on. And then these are the academic programs the student has registered for previously. Here under biodata, it's the same information that we can also see under students at risk. So anyway, we can review on a student basis the various results and performances. Then looking under course records, we can look at historically the performance of this course. So we can look at the pass rate as it's varied over the past 5 years and the mean. So all that's available. If there are different instances of the course, so for example, if you have course codes for the same course in different on different campuses, you can select that variant for campus here. If you also have different types of different classes for the same course, so for example, you might have a different boot camp class and so on, then you can choose that variant. If you just select all, it will show you all variants together and the overall stats there, or you can select a specific variant and then get the stats for that variant. And it's quite useful sometimes that the results on one campus differ from the results on another campus. So you can deal with your variants there. And then you can get your various statistics down here. So for each of the years, it's the same information. Well, this shows just the mean and the pass rate. If you wanted other information, that's shown here. Note also that the definition of pass rate and mean, that's based on the number of students who wrote the final exam. So you can do this in terms of students who wrote versus students who registered, because sometimes that's not the same. Right, sometimes the number of the students who originally registered, sometimes they don't finally write the final exam for whatever reason. So this is based, so just bear in mind, this is based on students who wrote. So that's your basic course records. And then you can also try to understand how this course is placed in comparison with the so-called peer and prior courses. So a peer course is a course taken in the same semester as the current course of interest. And so we can look at the cross-correlation between the current course and the other courses. So number one, you can just look at how the students are performing overall in the peer and prior courses here. And then you can look at the cross-correlation. So of course, a course correlates 100% with itself. but it's also useful to see how well which courses a course correlates with. So for instance, this particular course seems to have a stronger correlation with this other course. And it's interesting, it's a fourth year course that correlates fairly well with this second year course. So spotting these correlations can give us a good indication about the relative performance by the students. So this is, of course, the Pearson R coefficient. It's basically constructed by plotting all the records of, or the final results of the students in the one course against the same students in the other course. So a single point on that graph is the same student, their result in this course, and then their result in that course. And then overall across all students, how well does that correlate? So are the students who are doing relatively well in the one course, are those students also doing relatively well in the other course? And the same in reverse for the underperforming students. So this gives us a good indication about consistency across our courses. And it's interesting, sometimes you find a single course that tends to correlate well across all the courses, well in a relatively high number of correlations perhaps on this course. And sometimes we interpret those as suitability for prerequisites and co-requisites and so on. So unfortunately the title is not showing here, but one is the peer set and one is the prior set. And then we also can estimate whether the various courses are core courses or core electives or free electives. So it's based on the frequency. So if we look at over time the number of students registering for courses and then the fraction of students that take a particular course, then relatively high numbers indicate that it might be a core course. So if most students are taking particular courses, those might be core courses. Then if a slightly lower number are taking other courses, those might be core elective. And then if there are relatively low frequencies of other courses, those might be free electives. And you can page around here in the usual way. Right, so those are peer and priors. And then if you want to check the prerequisites as well, so let's just give ourselves a bit more room. So to check the prerequisites, you first of all, so if you want to check whether all the students who should be in the course are there, or differently, if you want to check whether the students currently registered in this course are in compliance with the rules, you can do that here. So if you click Add All Students, that will add up the list of all the students who should be registered in that course. And then if you list here the courses that you want to test against, so let's say there was the course A, B, C, D, 010, and we wanted to know whether all the students who are currently registered in this course, if they have completed this made-up course here, then you just click add check, and then it doesn't find any result on that course, so no issues. But otherwise, if there is a course and it finds a result for each of those students on that course, and if that result is not a pass result, then it will give you a list of the students who shouldn't be in the present course. So that's how you do your prerequisite checks there. Then under assessments, you can just get the number one, you can get the basic stats for the assessments. Then you can look at the cross correlation. So it looks like the two assessments are fairly well correlated here. So 85% or Pearson R 0.85, that's a good correlation in the tests. So that's some indication that that for academic reasons, the students, their results are what they are. So you can look at correlations, and then of course you can go to the raw data as well. So again, you would normally have the student number here if you are not anonymizing as I'm doing, and you can review the actual results. Okay, so as I say, this is just the first part of the ClassView Connect, and we are adding in the other parts which actually make it an auto-scholar system. So this is currently more aimed at just getting basic access to the student information here.